Hi, my name is Rob, and today I will talk about the Canadian government under Mark Carney giving up on climate action. And I will look at some articles that I have found. Let's see. So the first one is Canada delaying plan to force automakers to hit EV sales target. And I recognize that electric vehicles are not the only climate solution, and the infrastructure surrounding electric vehicles, vehicles in general, like more roads, more urban sprawl, is a problem. Saying this, I also recognize that electric vehicles do have a role to play in climate reduction when compared to fossil fuel vehicles, fueled vehicles. There's been life cycle analysis done comparing electric vehicles and gas-powered vehicles, showing that over the course of the life cycle, greenhouse gases are reduced with electric vehicles. And there's also the electricity grid to consider. So I just wanted to get that out of the way before talking about these articles. So the first article is called Canada Delaying Plan to Force Automakers to Hit EV Sales Target. Canada had this is by CBC, by Catherine Tony and Michael Woods, and it was published on September 5th, 2025. I highlighted that Mark Carney is delaying a plan to force automakers to hit minimum sales levels for electric vehicles, and the government will conduct a 60-year review of the policy, and it will be waived for 2026 models. And this applies to new vehicles. And there will be a look at the entire mandate and the next steps. Greenpeace Canada criticized the mandate. There was a quote. "What was the point of electing Mark Carney when we got Pierre Poilievre's climate policy," said Keith Stewart, senior energy strategist with the activist group. Rick Smith, president of the Canadian Climate Institute, called the announcement a missed opportunity and said it creates new uncertainty and undermines smart, low-cost climate policy in a critical sector. And 1/3 of greenhouse gases come from the transportation sector. So by not tackling the climate with electric vehicle mandate, there was a huge gap in meeting the targets, emissions targets, and there was an impact of more extreme weather if we fail to act as a result of climate change. Oh, wait. I will go to the next article. So the next article is from the National Observer. Climate takes another hit as Carney delays EV sales mandate. And this article is by Natasha Borowski, published on September 5th, 2025. And I will also note that we have less than 10 years to reduce emissions to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. And then I've made some highlights in the article. And it says, along with removing the sales target, the federal government will immediately launch a 60 days review of the EV standard to identify future ways to reduce cost. And it said one expert on climate is not optimistic about a climate competitiveness strategy and decarbonization that was also announced. Deborah Van Nijanten, a professor of political science and environmental studies, said climate policy planks that were delivering significant emissions reductions are falling one by one. Those, the carbon price as one example, and now those, the EV mandate. And quote, there appears to be no plan to replace that with other emission reduction strategies. And there's no plan to show how the reactive policy choices that they've been making in a piecemeal fashion add up to any climate strategy that is integrated with the economic strategy, end quote. And then, yes, I said that Mark Carney and the consumer carbon price. And then there was another quote. All this does is make me think he's going to lift the oil and gas emissions cap as well. And then there was Black environment and climate change critic Patrick Bowman slammed Carney's decision. And then I made another highlight. The transportation sector is responsible for 23% of Canada's emissions, second only to the oil and gas sector's 30% share. So about 1/3 in transportation. Removing the full sales target is a direct disincentive for automakers to make electric vehicles available to Canadians. Van Nijanten said. Let's see, where did I... Oh, okay, yeah, same person, professor of political science and environmental studies. And then let's see, what else did I highlight in this article? Okay, I don't think I highlighted anything else. Oh, I will also say hybrids and EVs will to make up at least 20% of the sales in 2026 and 100% by 2035. I don't think it's unreasonable to reach 20% sales in 2026. So I will go to the next article. So this is another reason why I believe that Canada under Mark Carney is giving up on climate change. This is an article from CTV News. Industry Minister Jolie won't say federal climate targets are here to stay. By Spencer Van Dijk. There was an interview with CTV Question Period where Minister Jolie was asked about the emissions reduction targets for 2030 and 2035, and the Minister of Industry wouldn't say. Maybe I can. No, it's 9 minutes, so I was thinking of playing the video, but it's 9 minutes. And then when asked if the government was clearly committed to 2050 net zero emissions targets, this is a highlight, the minister wasn't definitive. And then there was, quote, "We need to make sure that we are there for the auto sector while continuing to have very ambitious climate change goals. So making sure that we reduce emissions, and that's why we're launching a 60-day period consultation." So it looks like there's a consultation. Hopefully that's open to the public. And this is the second cabinet minister who would not back the Trudeau-era emissions reductions targets. And that was Minister Tim Hodgson. And the minister denied that this was in response to conservative rhetoric, and said, no, it's about the tariffs, it's about the fact that the US is putting tariffs on our auto sector, and that's affecting jobs. And a spokesperson for Environment Climate Change Minister Julie Daberson wrote, Canada is committed to reaching net zero emissions by 2050. I don't believe this because of the actions of reducing climate policy. It shows the opposite effect. And I've been reading the climate book by Greta Thunberg. And Greta Thunberg says that a lot of politicians make promises about climate change to look good, but they fail to act. And they don't make good enough targets to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. And this is backed up with research from scientists around the world. So let's see. I will go to the next article. This one is The Conversation, and it's called Is Mark Carney Turning His Back on Climate Action? I believe that this is a opinion piece. I'm not sure if this is an opinion piece or not. And it's by Deborah DeLong, Associate Professor of Global Management Studies at the Toronto Metropolitan University, and and I made some highlights. There was a G7 summit in Alberta, which was hosted this year. There was only like a passing mention of fighting climate change, including a statement on wildfires. And yeah, so climate was not taken seriously. And those points about taking action on climate would be beneficial economically in this article, and we would be losing out on economics opportunity, and supporting the fossil fuel industry will make us uncompetitive with other countries and vulnerable to the fossil fuel industry. So this is the next article. It's the NOAA. It's called Carney touted oil and gas partnerships. CEO wanted to tuck Trudeau's climate plan. And it's by Cole Meal. It says disclosure reports show industry leaders had something else in the crosshairs, the federal climate plan. And it said oil and gas industries lobbied Carney and his ministers not only on economic issues like U.S. tariffs, but also on several former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's climate policies in the emissions reduction plan, which include the clean fuel energy regulations and the rules for methane. It said that the article says that Enbridge lobbied that Carney over clean fuels and clean electricity rules. Other organizations did not respond to NOAA's questions. And then Alex Cool-Fergus, the National Policy Manager at Climate Action Network, said public commentary from the industry suggests it's not particularly interested in trying to improve the climate plan. And then this article says that the industry is responsible for 1/3 of national emissions, and oil and gas emissions have increased 77% since 1990. And then half of oil and gas lobbying included climate plan communications. We don't know what those limitations on this. We don't know exactly what was discussed. And then it says lobbying records only show the date of communication, the organization doing the lobbying, the person or people being lobbied, and the subject matter, and not other information like whether the lobbying occurred in person. So yeah, what what I get from this news is that Mark Carney and the Liberal government has effectively given up on climate change. And a delay when we have less than a decade to reduce emissions by dramatically to avoid the worst impact of climate change, and those evidence that already says that Canada's emissions targets are inadequate. This is an abandonment. And it means that the world is at greater risk of more extreme weather, and we're not preparing for what's to come in terms of mitigation either. I could talk about the destruction of wetlands as well, and yeah, it's a scary place. But I will be also sharing books on organizing and strategies on communications. I'll be reading them, and I hope that those a different path forward. It looks like we can't rely on politicians to make climate action happen, which is badly needed. Anyways, I hope that you have a good rest of your day, and I will look out for the consultations and share them as soon as I find them. And I will go to